What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back for another week breaking down the top plays at each position according to the rankings from the top DFS player in the world. Yes, it's week 11 of Awesemo'S NFL rankings. It should be an interesting week with two of the favorite DFS plays all season long priced up to pretty much untenable prices, but we'll talk about it as we go. So right now, hit that like button if you want to win a free month of Awesemo Plus. Like the video and comment your pick for 2 touchdowns in week 11 down below. Could be any wide receiver, tight end, or running back. Like the video and comment your 2 touchdown boy down below. As always, Awesemo'S NFL rankings are created with a mix of points and value relative to the salaries on all the DFS sites, created by the top DFS player in the world, Alex Awesemo Baker. So let's get right into it, starting with the quarterbacks and Kyle Allen in a matchup versus Atlanta, in which there are 26.8 implied points for Carolina. Allen gets a C in points and an A in value on Draftkings, Fanduel, and Fantasy Draft, while he gets a C in points and a B in value on Yahoo. Allen's price is too low industry-wide, and while he may not have slate-breaking upside, he can be a vessel to all the chalk ownership for Carolina position players against Atlanta's awful pass defense and may have just been lucky last week versus New Orleans. Another top QB play according to Awesemo'S NFL rankings is Derek Carr in a match versus Cincinnati, in which there are 29.8 implied points for Oakland. Carr gets a B in points and an A in value on Draftkings, Fanduel, Fantasy Draft, and Yahoo. Carr has the biggest team total of the week in this matchup versus the Cincinnati defense that gives up 8.8 yards per pass and a 5.3% passing TD rate, with the lone concern being that he has yet to crack 24 fantasy points on the year. And a quarterback I think you can get cheap and weird with is Jeff Driskel in a matchup versus Dallas, in which there are 19.8 implied points for Detroit. Driskel had 46 pass attempts, including 4 of 20 plus yards in his debut for the broken-backed Matthew Stafford. While Dallas's pass coverage is solid, Driskel is able to cobble together 19.1 fantasy points versus Chicago's stiff defense in week 10. And now let's talk about the top running backs in Awesemo'S NFL rankings, starting with Josh Jacobs in that match versus Cincinnati, in which there are again 29.8 implied points for Oakland. Jacobs gets a B in points and a B in value on DraftKings, FanDuel, and Fantasy Draft, while he gets a B in points and a C in value on Yahoo. Jacobs has 20 touches per game as Oakland's lead back against Cincinnati's 173 rushing yards per game allowed, with 5.2 yards per rush and a bad 60 run defense grade from PFF. And a high-priced guy who still looks good is Christian McCaffrey in that matchup versus Atlanta, in which there are 26.8 implied points for Carolina. McCaffrey gets an A in points and a B in value on FanDuel and Fantasy Draft, an A in points and a C in value on DraftKings, and an A in points and a D in value on Yahoo. McCaffrey remains highly priced, but he's only been under 29.1 fantasy points twice this year, and while Atlanta's run defense is solid with 3.8 yards per rush allowed, McCaffrey continues to have the best floor and ceiling at the position, despite the tough price. And here's a cheap and chalky running back for you, Brian Hill in that matchup at Carolina, in which there are 22.8 implied points for Atlanta. Hill is a value play who saw 20 rushes and 2 targets in week 10 with Devonta Freeman hurt. Now he faces the Carolina run funnel that gives up 5.2 yards per rush and a 7.1% rushing TD rate. And now on to the top wide receivers according to Awesemo'S NFL rankings, starting with Michael Thomas in that matchup at Tampa Bay, in which there are 27.8 implied points for New Orleans. Thomas gets an A in points and an A in value on FanDuel and Fantasy Draft, an A in points and a B in value on DraftKings, and an A in points and a C in value on Yahoo. Thomas is up to 11.4 targets per game. He's against the 299 passing yards per game Tampa Bay allows, and he's had 44.2 fantasy points versus Tampa Bay in week 5, so he still may be worth it despite the massive price jump for Michael Thomas. Julio Jones at Carolina also looks interesting with 22.8 implied points for Atlanta. Jones gets an A in points and an A in value on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft, an A in points and a B in value on FanDuel, and an A in points and a C in value on Yahoo. Julio may find some tough defense with the 6.2 yards per pass Carolina allows, but he should also see more of a workload with Austin Hooper and Devonta Freeman sideline with 12 targets per game out of their ecosystem. And this guy may just be too cheap for his new role, Mohamed Sanu at Philadelphia, in a game in which there are 24.3 implied points for New England. Sanu had 14 targets versus Baltimore in week 9 with the 3rd most routes run in the league, and he could be needed for volume with Philadelphia's run defense rock solid, but their pass defense very beatable. And let's close it out with the tight ends and defenses in Awesemo'S NFL rankings, starting with Darren Waller in that match versus Cincinnati, in which there are 29.8 implied points for Oakland. Waller gets an A in points and an A in value on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft, and an A in points and a B in value on FanDuel and Yahoo. Waller projects to be chalky despite 3 down weeks in a row under 10 fantasy points, but he should find success if he sees closer to the 8 targets he had in week 8 than the 2 or 5 targets he had in weeks 9 and 10. And a tight end who'll be cheap chalk is Greg Olsen in that match versus Atlanta, in which there are 26.8 implied points for Carolina. Olsen saw 10 targets in week 10, and he turned it into 8 catches for 98 yards, so his high ownership is interesting, with the catches a season high in many ways for Carolina's offense to move the ball. And for the defenses, New Orleans defense at Tampa Bay looks well graded with 22.3 implied points against New Orleans. New Orleans brings a solid 28% pressure rate that turns Jameis into a 5% interception rate passer with a 52 QB rating, but the absence of Marshawn Lattimore could hurt their pass coverage enough to make it a risk. And a defense I think you can pay up and pray for is Minnesota's defense versus Denver in a game in which there are 15 implied points against Minnesota. Minnesota is expensive, but Brandon Allen had a 13% sack rate in his debut, and he'll see a solid 27% blitz rate for Minnesota, with their red zone defense likely to stiffen up when needed. So there you have it. That's what I'm seeing so far for week 11 according to Awesemo'S NFL rankings. So right now, now, please hit that like button. If you want to win that free month of Awesemo', like the video and comment your 2 touchdown boy down below. Last week, we had a bunch of guesses of Christian Kirk and Aaron Jones in there, but only one person can win the free month of Awesemo' as always, and the winner is going to be this guy right here, Lincoln Newton. So Lincoln, email me at chris@awesemo.com to collect your prize. For everybody else out there, like the video and comment your 2 touchdown boy for your chance at a free month of Awesemo'. If you don't want to wait for that free month, use this promo code SWITCHANDHEDGE for half off your first month of Awesemo'. Go to awesemo.com/join to use that promo code, or find packages as low as $3.95 a week. Either way, go to awesemo.com/join right now and choose a package that'll work for you. Go follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. I've got 7 days a week of NFL and NBA DFS content. I've got On the Contrary tomorrow and Live Before Lock on Sunday, so keep up with me all weekend long on Twitter and Instagram at Chris Spags. As I mentioned, I'll be back tomorrow with On the Contrary as well as Live Before Lock on Sunday, so watch both those. And otherwise, I'll be back with you guys again next week for another run through Awesemo'S NFL rankings. So wish you guys the best of luck for Week 11. Hit that like button before you go, and have a great weekend, guys. Good luck.